Happy New Year. Well, on Soni Irabor Live tonight, we have three distinguished scholars and analysts and professionals. I don't know what to call them anymore, except that we are dealing with issues that I know you and I will really ponder about as well. We'll deal with politics, and we have Mr. Magnus Onyibe. I should call him by now Dr. Magnus Onyibe, because his articles are very reflective of his doctoral status. And then we also, and he'll be dealing with politics, Nigeria and politics in 2026. And we'll be looking at spirituality of Nigeria and others in 2026. And we have Reverend Dr. Donald, not Trump, King, okay? We know what just happened this few hours ago. And then, of course, he will be dealing with the spirituality of Nigeria. Then we have Mr. Olufisayo Okunsanya, who will be looking at the economy of Nigeria in 2026. You see, I'm trying hard not to be too, academic about it or too verbose about it. I'll let the professionals handle it the best way they can. And a man like, okay, let me start with Olufisayo Okunsanya. He's a strategist, a business economist, and so on and so forth. And of course, Reverend Donald King is a man who knows how to, address the mind of the average Nigerian, I should say, because I think he's going to advise us better the best way we should deal with our spirituality. When I say spirituality, I'm not thinking of how you go to church or which church you belong to or which religious organization. No, I'm thinking more deeply of the innermost mind and how best you can manage it. And then politics, of course, he does and writes a lot of articles, opinions about goings on around the world and around Nigeria. Professor Dr. Magnus Onyibe, he is a very, very restless writer. And because of that, we said, let him come and look at the politics of Nigeria and the best way to go about it. So I have all of them. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, and Happy New Year.
Mr. Magnus Onyibe, you're welcome.
Happy New Year.
So, Mr. Olufisayo Okunsanya, you're also welcome. Can I hear your voice?
Thank you for having me.
Good evening. How are you? You're in the UK somewhere, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, because I need to hear your voice a bit deeper. And then, of course, Reverend Dr. Donald King. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's Ronald King.
Ronald? Oh, not Donald. You see, look, you know what just happened
not the first, actually.
You know what just happened a few hours ago now? I mean, Maduro of Venezuela has been, should I use the word captured or arrested? Well, he's the president of the country. But anyway, let's look at that, a little bit, Mr. Magnus Onyibe. Politics and what has just happened in Venezuela. How would you look at it before you look into Nigeria?
Well, it's the reality of our times. When President Trump was elected and sworn into office, he did say that he was going to change the way the world is run. And people didn't expect he would go this far.
The way the world is run?
Yes.
Is it the head of state of the world?
Well, the U.S. is the de facto head of the world.
Okay.
There used to be two, U.S. and Russia. But after the Cold War, the U.S. has been the global hegemon. And, so it depends on the character and personality of the person who is the President of the United States of America.
Character and personality.
Yes.
Please expatiate on that.
Yes, when President Biden was there, Joe Biden was there, he was very calm, he was very coordinated, having been incumbent for a very long time. So he knew how to moderate things and deal with affairs of the world in more moderate and maybe modest ways. But you have a Donald Trump who's radically different from President Biden. And he's coming from the private sector, and he has this can-do spirit. And he's reminding me of Ronald Reagan. You know, back in those days, Ronald Reagan was referred to as a warhead because of the number of wars that he started around the world. It was in the days of the Cold War. You know, so President Trump is tending towards
now
being
another
like
Republican,
Reagan.
by the way.
Yes, yes, he's tending towards being like Reagan. He actually came promising that he would not start wars; he was going to end wars. But the way life
There are a lot of
is,
wars going on now.
the way life is, a lot of things started happening, and he had to
Let's come to
intervene.
Nigeria.
Yes.
He attacked Nigeria on Christmas Day,
Yes.
or thereabout.
Yes.
And when I say attack Nigeria, he came and said he was fighting insurgents.
Yes.
What's your reaction to that?
Yes, we actually invited him. We actually invited the
Nigeria
United States of
invited him.
America to help solve the issue of insurgency. And, you know, of course, you know the antecedents. When he declared Nigeria CPC, a country of particular concern,
yeah.
you know, we engaged the U.S. and, you know, we sought their assistance, and they came in to help. And we know where we are right now on that. You know, it was a very good thing that our president
Well,
was
Nigerians have seen it from a mixed reaction.
Yes, you know, to me, you know, and I've made this argument in a lot of my write-ups, that our president was very smart. He was very pragmatic. He realized that we had to, you know, look, the intention of the U.S. coincided with the intention of President Tinubu. In the past 20 years, President
Especially with
Tinubu had
insecurity.
been
Yeah.
trying to reset the country. He's been dealing with economic issues. Now he has stabilized the economy. So his next priority was tending towards taking care of insecurity. And Trump struck at about the same time to declare us a CPC. So, and he said, oh, really, I'm open to this. I want to solve the problem. In fact, he was already working towards it. He has changed the Minister of Defense. He has actually...
Well, it seems to be jump-started. It's as if he's being jump-started or he's being pushed to do something.
No. He had already changed the Minister of Defense before CPC declaration.
Yeah.
He had already attended Akaba in Rome, which was a regional meeting for security on the 12th of October. Before this happened, he had already, changed the chiefs of defense, right, of all the military chiefs, army, and stuff like that. So he was already working towards it.
Yeah.
So their two missions, coincided, and so it was good to go, and he implemented it. A lot of people are talking about sovereignty. Look, Mr. President's intention right now, and he's very intentional about it, is to reset Nigeria, stabilize Nigeria. He's now moving to security, and people expect him to begin to engage with Trump in a negative form, to begin to drag or argue or cause conflict or begin to get repercussions like other countries that challenge Trump are doing now. You have to be pragmatic. He is working in the best interest of Nigeria. Our best interest now is to have the economy reset, is to get things going and not to engage in any distractions.
Mr. Okunsanya, Olufisayo Okunsanya, he has told us that the economic reset for Nigeria. Let's take it from there. What is your thought on that? Nigeria's economic reset for 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, thank you, Soni. Now, when you think about where Nigeria has been over the last few years, you would understand that certain very important things needed to be done. And if you want to refuel a car that's on an empty tank, you need to park it, right? And that's the difficult part. That's the part where there's hardship and there's all that. But fundamental things needed to be done. So, of course, at the beginning of this administration, the two major things that were done, first subsidy removal and all that, caused a lot of hardship. But somehow, right now, if you feel the atmosphere, and I spend a lot of time in Nigeria, you'll find out that things are a bit quiet on the economic side. People are not shouting as much as they used to because there's a sort of some level of filtering going down, right? So the currency has sort of stabilized, but due to increase in crude oil production and reduction in the refining products that we're importing, and that's a structural thing, right? For us to actually be refining. Now, the only things that need to be done right now are to expand the economy, right, we need to decide how many sectors do we need to wake up right now, right? So we have so many sectors that we have a narrow economy and we need to expand it. I think right now the economy is stabilizing, but then economies don't grow on just stability. Stability is beautiful.
Yeah, but we're largely dependent on crude oil. We're not as expansive, or we have not expanded towards gold, which I hear is in abundance in Zamfara, or some of the rare earth, resources that we have in places like Kogi and other parts of Nigeria. So, apart from oil, what can we really say we can expand on?
Okay, so let's put it in perspective, because I can reel out the numbers and the statistics to you, but it doesn't help the average man, and that's why he seems sort of disconnected from fiscal and monetary policy, right? I can tell you what the budget is, I can tell you all that, but it doesn't really help the average man. Let's look at Nigeria in the peculiar position that it is. Nigeria has 3 economies flowing into one, and people don't like to talk about this, but this is the reality.
Can you identify those 3 economies, please?
3 economies. So first of all, you have the formal economy, right? Which is what we all talk about, which is what we have data on, which is what we calculate our GDP based on, the formal economy. Nigeria has an informal economy, which is larger than it should be, right? Then thirdly, which nobody likes to talk about, but it's there, we all live it, Nigeria has a shadow economy.
Shadow?
Right? Which is a third economy. Now, our evolution as a people will be
sorry, what do you mean by shadow economy? Can you explain it better
and
for
I'll
us?
explain it, and I'll explain all of them. So you have your formal economy, which is your economy that FDI comes in, the way money flows into the economy, foreign direct investment comes in, you sell, you buy, corporations, government can tax on that economy. Then you have the informal economy where there's a lot of flow going there, but we can't track it. Now you see, everything that the government is trying to do right now is to formalize the informal sector, right? So this new tax law, everything, let's increase the tax net. So up till now, our tax to GDP ratio was arguably between 3 and 6%. Tax to GDP ratio is the degree to which the government can collect tax on the value created within the economy, right? To prove what I'm saying, the tax to GDP ratio is one of the lowest in the world, because that economy, we don't even know what's going on in that informal sector. But Uncle Soni, just go outside now and start a small food business where there are laborers and see how much you will make, right? It gives you some kind of sense of the flows that are going on in this economy. Except you have done real business, you will never know it exists. You will make projections on the formal economy, but the informal economy is 70 to 80% of the value, right? Then the shadow economy, which is below the surface. We don't like to talk about it, but it's there. And the structure of our economy depends on it, right? It's as every country in its evolution had to go through a shadow economy to get to where it was. There were eras in the US of prohibition. There were eras where things were not allowed, and they formalized. As they formalized, things became legal, and the lines between legal and illegal became clear. But here, we are still there where the shadow economy is a very large portion of our economy. It's in the background, but it feeds a huge number of Nigerians, right? It feeds a huge number of Nigerians. And we need to think about that, right? This is the crux of the matter. How do we get those 2 economies and collapse them as much as possible into a formal economy where we have data that we can plan, and then we can grow the economy, and then we can now start talking about what sectors are performing. Because Uncle this mining and all these things are talking about, they're in the shadow economy. All those things you're saying, Zamfara Gold, there are rumors we hear, whether it's happening or not, but they are in the shadow economy. But guess what? A lot of people are feeding on them.
All right. So let me bring in Reverend Dr. Ronald King, not Donald, Ronald King. Spirituality. Let's look at, we've had, politics, economy. How really deeply spiritual is the average Nigerian, irrespective of your religious background?
Well, well, just as you know, and everybody in this panel, Nigerians are deeply spiritual. It depends on which God you are calling. Our problem is not spirituality. Our problem is not, religious belief, because they are there. If you need the statistics, you can readily have them. The problem we have is the practical implementation of what the tenets of those religious beliefs. That's where the problem is. There is a disconnect. So if you talk about spirituality in terms of fasting, just go everywhere from north, south, east, west of Nigeria today. Virtually everybody is in one form of, religious activities or spiritual activity or the other. Fasting is going on. Let me take the Christian aspect now. Many of our churches are fasting currently. Some have already fasted against 2026. I made some calls to some of my friends, pastors, people who are the head of organizations and stuff like that. And, some of them are actually telling me, okay, by February, the mainstream churches, will start the Lenten period. And then from the Lenten period, which is 40 days of fasting, and it will also coincide when the Muslims will also, be doing, handling their own fasting. See, the problem in Nigeria is not spirituality, okay? It's not spirituality. It is the implementation of the tenets, the practical application of that which we are taught in our various religious settings. That's where the problem is. That's where the disconnect is. Because if we truly implement what we are taught, I strongly believe that even the aspect of economy, the aspect of politics will actually fall in line. Okay, if we say, okay, fine, we need the best. Question, who is the best? The people know who the best is.
Okay.
If it comes in terms of even politics, we are also taught about how to actually see or relate with the best.
Okay.
But then between that which we are taught and the practical aspect, you now begin to bring in other aspects. Ethnicity, my own religion, is my own person, is my own turn, and all those things will end up beclouding that which we have been taught, and that will naturally bring the disconnect. So we don't have problem with spirituality.
Okay. So we'll be right back after the break.
It's an implementation.
Right. We'll be right back after the break, and then we'll go deeper into politics, spirituality, and the economy. This is 2026. Nigeria is not on the precipice, no. It's been in and out of daring moments. And that's why we asked the questions we asked earlier: politics, economy, and spirituality. Let me go back to politics. What is with Nigeria and politics? It's just, this current government is just 2 years?
Yes.
They're already campaigning for the 2027.
Yes.
Let me ask you, is this the right time to do that? Isn't there so much work, politically talking, that we need to do before we begin to, worry ourselves about?
Unfortunately, the nature of politics is that it's continuous. It never ends. You are continuously campaigning. And coming from where we're coming, the tempo has to be sustained. And of course, you're aware of all the seismic changes that have happened.
Seismic?
Yes, it's really seismic, because it has never happened that all the opposition will collapse into the ruling party. And, unlike what the people in the opposition, some people in the opposition that remain in the opposition were saying, that it was because of persecution, the ruling party using the security agencies. They found out that it's superior strategy. unlike in the past, during the time of, PDP being in charge, and the EFCC and stuff like that and whatever. Right now, I don't think, that the EFCC is persecuting any governor or any government, unjustly.
Isn't that because everybody's looking for a way to, say, be in the good books of the ruling party?
No, I actually don't think so. There's no evidence to that effect that EFCC is threatening anybody. People are just saying, a lot of people, a lot of governors, a lot of governments want to hook up to the center. They found the benefit.
A few weeks and a few months ago, there was the fear of the one-party state of Nigeria.
Yes, but we explained all of that. It was unfounded. It was scaremongering.
So what was their carpet movement? People moving from one party to another.
Because of superior strategy. Look at PDP, for instance. It's in shambles. The founders moved, went to ADC. The founders, not just the joiners, the founders moved. The critical people in PDP, the former vice president, the former Senate president, and the whole bunch of them moved. So what would that party, and the party has internal issues continuously,
one would have
permanently.
That these things happen in UK, for example, or France, or USA, where you don't just move from a party to another just because you have opportunity to do that.
No, they are deeply.
It's only in Nigeria.
They are deeply ideological there. Right now, there's no ideology. Anybody can be in any party. It's not based on any ideology.
Is that good politics?
It's not, but we're evolving. This is the state that Nigeria is in right now. For instance, President Trump right now, that's a Republican, wasn't originally a Republican. Take note of that. He
didn't do it while he was in office.
No, you don't. It doesn't have to be exactly the same way it's played in America. I'm just telling you that this happens. Whatever, it's evolutionary. So the APC has superior strategy to the rest of the parties right now. That's what the truth is.
From your analysis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's, of course, from my viewpoint. The other parties are in shambles. They're unable to hold fast. You remember, everybody was thinking that after 2013, APC was going to disintegrate because it's a party formed by different parties with different ideologies, right now. But it's to the credit of the leader that they've been able to hold themselves together against all odds. And they have become cohesive. There's a glue that's holding it together, and the strategy.
Well, how would that benefit? This is my major concern. How would that benefit the average Nigerian?
Okay, so look, there's no room for vacuum, right? Nigeria is not created as a one-party state. It's created to be a multi-party state. If, because of circumstances right now, all the parties are collapsing into one, the forces within would also make it splinter, right? It would make it, find its form, one way or the other, over time, right? So, it's not something we should fear, and it's not going to be totally a one-party state. We still have four parties. We still have ABGA. We still have Labour. We still have NNPP running states.
But all right in a minimal.
Plus PDP, of course. State. Okay, let's take the US, for instance. We have the Republicans, we have the Democrats. I'm sure you are aware of that they are small,
unknown.
Exactly, unknown. So
we call them carpetbaggers.
Exactly. So it's not unexpected, but we are going through an evolution. That the rest of the people, the rest of the parties need to know how to hold themselves together. They have not been able to do that, and because of lack of inclusivity, and lack of internal democracy, that's what's causing all this.
Again, we say inclusivity and internal democracy. What worries me in what you just said against those two is the fact that there are Nigerian politicians who have no depth in understanding what is required of them as politicians. Otherwise, it should be in the interest of the country.
Yes. So this evolution is going to bring out the best in us. When we face this challenge of say, oh, this country cannot become a one-party state, you will see the forces coming into play, and things will begin to change. But it's a process that we must go through, so that the opposition will learn to hold fast.
Okay. Well, Olufisayo Okunsanya, I hope you are there with us. Okunsanya, yes. Now the question is, if you look at politics, then you now look at economy. How do you relate them to make Nigeria stand as a proper sovereign state that's trying to survive properly?
Political economy, because you can't talk about economics without, in reality, without politics. Start with even your selection of those who will man the economy. Are they the best or are they not? You know, and so there's always politics involved in that. Start with the issues that you want to bring out, the sectors that you want to awaken, like I was saying earlier. Are there interests in there, obviously, or are they not? Nigeria has long focused on its crude oil sector, but Nigeria is so blessed with many other things. If you take it even out of the extractive sectors like mining and the natural resources, and you put it in a sector like services, a country with 200 million people, there's so much that we can do. That's why you see us prospering in other countries on other sectors. So obviously, you know, the politics and the economy cannot be separated, right? The question is, where do we draw the line? I think that's the question that I would rephrase the question you've asked, Soni, too, is where do we draw the line? How far do we go in playing politics with the subsistence, lives and livelihood? How far do we go in marking political territory with things that are so sensitive? We play politics with a lot of things. I'll talk about healthcare because I like to, that affects all of us.
Yes.
And then something like COVID happens, and then someone says, oh, we didn't know our healthcare system was this bad. And COVID showed us that health is an equalizer, regardless of who you are. When the time comes, you are not going to be able to jump on a plane to go anywhere. And this is not just for COVID, this is for comorbidities, this is for mortality, this is for cardiac specialties, any other specialty, right? There are specialties where if you had an arrest right now, you have 6 hours to leave. The flight between here and London is 6 hours. By the time you're landing in Heathrow, you'll be passing away. You know, so the question is, how far do we go? You know, and I think it dovetails into something that Reverend Raymond might answer, because then he now talks at our spirituality and at our morality, at our spirituality. Where do we draw the line in our humanity, and how far do we go? Because there's always going to be politics involved in economics. There's always going to be interest. We make compromises, but we ensure that society is moving forward, right? We make compromises here and there to accommodate, because when we come together and say, we the people, your rights are limited by the liberties of the other person. You know, so there's politics in accommodation, but how far do we go in playing politics with critical issues that have to do with our economy, our health, our life, and our livelihood? That's my submission, sir.
I like that. Well, Reverend Ronald King, I'm happy that Okunsanya threw the question directly to you, except that I would like to borrow his words, the morality, the humanity, and the spirituality of us. And as I was talking to my studio guest earlier, Mr. Magnus Onyibe, how, you know, patient are we with one another? How really, truly dispassionate, empathetic are we with one another? You see, when we ask these questions, it does not tell us whether you are Christian or whether you are Muslim or whether you are other sources or other religions. It just tells you about your humanity, your morality, and your spirituality. Reverend, go ahead.
Well, the three actually work in sync, because you cannot rule out one's humanity, again from his spirituality, because man is a being made up of the spirit, soul, and body. And then, of course, the body houses the soul and the spirit. Whatever happens to one of these three dimensions of man will happen to every other aspect of his. So it is important that there is, a balancing. Okay, the ecosystem should be equalized in such a manner that this person finds peace wherever he or she finds himself. Now, if we take the Nigerian context, the question now arises: do every Nigerian find peace in every part of the country? Because that brings in a deeper dimension, because on the surface level, yes, of course, I can enter maybe a vehicle or an aeroplane and fly down to Kano or Sokoto or to Enugu or Port Harcourt. When I land in India and then maybe I begin to interact, how do I feel? I'm not talking about others looking at me, I'm talking about myself. Do I feel frightened? Do I feel that I do not belong? Do I feel that I have limitations? Or do I feel that I have the freedom to exercise myself legally anyway, and then knowing that in so doing, I'm not going to infringe on anybody's else's rights, and then nobody is also going to view me, from a perspective that will frighten me. So that dimension is very, very critical. And anytime that is ruled out, that's when you now hear people say, oh, live peaceably together with every other person, which is surface level. We hear that, and sometimes you will be wondering, the person making such statements, is he actually alive within the Nigerian context, or is he an alien, or he has another motive? So it is important, because if I have the freedom to ply my business, anywhere I find myself within the boundaries of Nigeria as a Nigerian, then the aspect of spirituality, economy, politics, and everything will work together. We've been mentioning the United States all along. You find out that if you're in the US, whether you're a Democrat or you are, what's the name of the other party? Republican, you can actually ply your trade. Maybe your neighbor knows you to be a Democrat and he knows you to be a Republican. What does that mean? You go to work tomorrow, you return back on election day, you go and cast your vote. You have your ideology, I have my ideology. But then within that context, there is accommodation to that extent. To how, to what extent are we accommodating one another? There are deeper questions that will really, that will ask or task our answers. And I don't even think that this forum will be able to answer all, but then we can provide nuggets of truth for people to think about. We need, if we talk about economic growth, there must be, the accommodation and the peace of mind for the entrepreneur, wherever he or she finds himself, to apply his trade and successfully too, without recourse to any form of fear of the environment, of the people around him or her. So you see, that was why I said initially, the issue of spirituality. Every Nigerian is spiritual. But when it comes to the practicality of what we know, that is where the gap is. Is it possible that these gaps can bridge? If the gaps can bridge, a lot of the tension we have today will not be there.
Okay.
There's one place, I think as 2 Chronicles 7:14, Bible saying, if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves, and pray and turn away from their wicked ways, God speaking now says, I will hear their prayers, I will heal their land, and all and all. That is one scripture out of the entire Bible for me that talks about national unity and restoration.
Okay,
or reconciliation, whichever one.
Yes.
So
let me stop you there, because we must take this break before we go to the concluding part of Soni Irabor Live. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We have very little time left, about maybe 6 minutes at best. Let's see how we can, utilize those 6 minutes effectively. But the main question is, what is the rule of law when you talk about politics? And what is the rule of law when you talk about economy? The same way, what is the rule of law when you talk about spirituality? How can we harness our individuality, humanity, into the political aspect of respecting the rule of law?
Yes, I think somehow, with the political evolution in Nigeria, you remember that there was a stage where if the leader of Nigeria, the president, is a Muslim, the vice president has to be a Christian, and vice versa. But now, blending with religion, now the vice president and president can be of the same religion, and yet the schism or the conflict or the tension that was feared has not occurred, right? So that fusion should be magnetized. It should be driven further for us to actually fuse together and reduce the tension between the two religions. And the president of Nigeria right now embodies that. He's a Muslim, the wife is a Christian. So as the Reverend was saying earlier...
So practice is actually at home, from home.
Exactly. So as the Reverend was saying earlier, the issue with us is intolerance. Lack of accommodation, as she said. If we begin to accommodate like the president is doing with his wife, we will not have these tensions anymore. And that's also where I want to be radical a bit. If you talk about one state party, do you know that one state nation, one state party, a nation of one state, a nation of one party actually drives unity? That's an extreme. It drives unity. It makes the people, because politics divides. Take note, it divides. But fortunately for us right now, they have not been able to push politics to divide us. Because even if it's a Muslim ticket, we are managing it. There's a bit of balance. The Christians are not shouting and screaming. The Muslims are probably a little bit here and there. But an evolution is taking place in Nigeria, that those extremes during the days of military into politics, when one is Christian, the other has to be Muslim. That is tending to
dissipate.
To disappear right now. So those kind of fusions are not there. But as the other speaker on the economy said earlier, politics and economics are intertwined. In fact, there's a program, a course in university called PPP. So
okay. Fisayo, how does the rule of law affect economy in this regard, based on what Magnus has talked about?
Thank you so much. Of course, again, I want to agree that that intertwined nature, that effect, cause and effect, affects it. The question is, there's a part in the Bible, I think it's 1 Samuel, that talks about the Lord makes rich and makes poor. And then he says the pillars of the earth belong to the Lord, and on that he placed the world. Now, he used the earth and the world he used it in interchangeably, right? We will use it interchangeably, but he didn't. Now, the earth there is economics, the resources. The world there is politics, the system. Whether you like it or not, there's a system that governs the distribution of resources in Nigeria. The question is it a fair and just system, right? If it is not, what do we do? And that's now you're talking about the rule of law and people being nature's priority. What do we do to ensure that that system that governs the distribution of resources can drive equitable distribution so that we can drive shared prosperity across the country? So politics essentially sits on the economy to ensure the distribution of those resources. And how do we ensure that it is a just enough system that can drive the distribution of those resources? I think that's how they interrelate. And the countries that can achieve that would have peace and stability. And the countries that cannot achieve that, even though things seem peaceful one day, there will be trouble. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Reverend Dr. Ronald King. You've heard
Yes,
two of
actually, I borrow a leaf from the last speaker.
Yes.
And what he said is simply his truth. I still go back to my earlier scripture I took on where God, the Bible says, if my people, which are called by my name, humble themselves and pray and turn away from their wicked ways. And then God says, see, I will hear your prayers. 1, 2, I will forgive your ills, your wickedness, your past that has not been too good. And number 3, there will be healing and there will be restoration. That word healing cuts across the entire divide. Whether it is political healing, economic healing, morality, and then interpersonal relationship, God says he will do it, but we have a part to play. The part we have to play is to live justly. Okay? They say he that goes to equity should go with a clean hand. Are we clean in our hands in the distribution of our shared resources? Where we are hearing voices today, have we listened to them? Because just as the last speaker said, if you are in your own best interest, relegating a people or a section of your own country to the background, the fact still remains that whatever you are calling peace is just proxy. It's only a matter of time. The other party will one day speak up. So those who are speaking out today, if we can listen to them, if we can take note of what their grievances are, and then try, to at least take care of those grievances, I believe strongly that there will be kind of parity and people will feel a sense of inclusion. The word that was used before, inclusivity. Okay, we do not have inclusivity in Nigeria currently. And it is part of the problem.
Okay.
And God says, if you can turn away from this, retrace from it, turn the leaf the other way, include people, and make them feel belonged, then whatsoever else you are doing will find expression. Whether you are talking about political peace or talking about economic peace and expansion, those things will find expression. What is economic growth? Is it not about people?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Very good way to end the program, I should say, because time is already up. And I should just add one thing that all three of them have talked about without probably using the word tolerance. We should actually be very tolerable with one another so that peace can reign. We must respect the rule of law. We must live with one another because that's the way Nigeria was made. All right. Thank you all. Reverend Dr. Ronald King and Reverend Dr. Olufisayo Okunsanya, and of course another Reverend Dr. Magnus Onyibe. I've given you all titles tonight because the program really, I'm very happy to have dealt with three scholastic minds like yours.
Thank you very much.
God bless you all.
Thank you for having us.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you today.